Okay, getting everything set up and ready to go. Doing a sound check real quick, and then I will start the show. D Live sounds good. Twitch sounds good. Got to go in and set the YouTube stream onto the playlist and then check the sound. Sounds good so far. Now let's see what happens with Kick. Kick was acting weird earlier. Kick sounds good. X is up and running, and it sounds good too. So now I go into it to Rumble and see what that sounds like. Sounds good. All right, today I am going to be doing another episode of Conspiracy. So let me go ahead and go get me some coffee, and I will be right back. I had a little bit of a setback to where I couldn't jump on and do the stream, but I didn't get my coffee or anything. So let me be back. I'll grab that and come right back in. Okay, I am back. Here we go. I'm do my countdown like usual, and then I will start the show. Three, two, one, now. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the wonderful world of weirdness. I'm your host, Roger Hanson, and today I will be doing another episode of Conspiracy. Before we get started, I'd like to say that thank you to everybody who has uh, supported the channel, and I hope you guys enjoy the stream that is about to take place. Now, if you have any comments or anything that you want to make, feel free to make them. I will answer them while we are in the live stream, but usually I'm caught up in the middle of the reading, so I won't be able to answer until after I'm done with the reading. So feel free to leave a comment and I will respond to it in the comment section. That being said, let me go ahead and get started. Now, recent reports have shed light on various espionage activities involving Turkey's intelligence agencies, known as the Intelligence Organization. These activities encompass most domestic surveillance and international operations. Domestically, there have been concerns over legislative efforts to broaden the definition of espionage. Human rights organizations have warned that such measures could be used to criminalize the work of journalists and civil society actors, potentially labeling them as threats to national security. Internationally, Turkey's intelligence operations have expanded significantly. In Europe, Turkish intelligence has been accused of conducting surveillance on dissidents, particularly in countries like Germany and France. For instance, a Turkish national was indicted in Germany for allegedly spying on individuals associated with a particular movement opposed to the Turkish government. In Africa, Turkey has established a notable intelligence presence in countries such as Niger. This expansion aims to project Turkish influence across the continent, with objectives including securing economic interests and countering rival powers. Additionally, Turkey has been involved in covert cyber operations. Reports indicate that Turkish-affiliated groups exploit vulnerabilities in messaging applications to monitor Kurdish military forces in Iraq. These developments reflect a broader strategy by Turkey to enhance its intelligence capabilities, both at home and abroad, raising concerns among the international observers about the implications for regional stability and human rights. After the events of September 11, a high-ranking State Department official, Mark Grossman, was alleged to have intervened in the detainment of foreign operatives who had been taken into custody by federal authorities of suspicious no, on suspicion of illicit activities involving national security. These individuals, reportedly of Turkish and Pakistani origin, were believed to possess sensitive information tied to arms trafficking and possible nuclear proliferation. Grossman allegedly received communication from foreign associates urging him to secure the release of these operatives. Following this intervention, the detainees were released and quickly left the United States, raising questions about interference in ongoing investigations. There was also claims that Grossman disclosed the identity of a covert intelligence front company that had been operating under the guise of a commercial business. This front was engaged in tracking the spread of nuclear materials and technology. By leaking the identity of this operation to foreign agents, it was believed that key intelligence networks were compromised. This information was reportedly passed to officials in Pakistan who were connected to a wider global network engaged in unauthorized nuclear proliferation, including individuals involved in building clandestine nuclear capabilities. In addition, it was alleged that Grossman played a role in enabling foreign nationals, particularly from Turkey and Israel, to be placed within United States research facilities, including national laboratories known for developing advanced nuclear and defense technologies. These individuals, often students or researchers, obtained security clearances and accessed highly sensitive data. Some of the information they accessed was said to have been funneled to foreign buyers, with reports suggesting that nuclear data from a military base in Alabama was once offered for sale to businessmen from the Gulf region for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Grossman was also believed to be at the center of a network that included several American politicians and foreign agents. Members of Congress were alleged to have passed classified material to aides who acted as intermediaries, channeling information to lobbying groups and foreign interests. Among the organizations allegedly involved were lobbying entities that represented Turkish and Israeli interests. The structure of this network involved a cycle of information sharing in exchange for political and financial benefits, undermining the integrity of intelligence and national defense operations. Tom Lantos, or Lantos, Tom Lantos, was a prominent American political figure who served in the United States Congress for several decades. He was known for his strong stance on foreign policy matters and his outspoken support for human rights. Having survived the Holocaust as a young man, Lantos brought a personal history to his political views, often shaping his legislative focus around international justice and democratic values. He played a leading role in various congressional efforts concerning foreign relations and had a significant influence in American policy in the Middle East and elsewhere. One of his key aides was Alan Makovsky, who worked closely with Lantos during his time in Congress. Makovsky handled a number of foreign policy responsibilities, particularly related to the Middle East and U.S. relations with Turkey and Israel. He had a reputation for being highly knowledgeable in regional affairs and contributed extensively to the shaping of policy recommendations and briefings. His involvement went beyond legislative support and extended into more detailed strategic discussions that impacted the direction of certain diplomatic relationships. Makovsky was also known for his work outside the government, including his involvement with various policy institutes and research organizations focused on international affairs. His views on Turkey, Israel, and the broader Middle East were influential among policymakers. In the context of his work with Tom Lantos, Makovsky often advised on complex foreign policy issues, including constitutional development and regional power dynamics. Allegations have been made that Mark Grossman, who served as the United States ambassador to Turkey and later as Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, intervened to facilitate the release of certain foreign operatives detained by federal authorities. Now, these individuals were reportedly apprehended shortly after September 11's attacks on suspicion of involvement in activities related to national security. It is claimed that Grossman was contacted by foreign associates who urged him to secure and release these operatives to prevent disclosure of sensitive information. Following this intervention, the detainees were released and subsequently left the United States. Further allegations suggest that Grossman disclosed the identity of a covert intelligence front company, which is Brewster, Jennings and Associates, which was involved in monitoring nuclear proliferation. This information was allegedly passed to foreign agents, compromising ongoing intelligence operations. Dennis Hastert, who served as Speaker of the United States House of Representatives from 1999 to 2007, has been associated with financial ties to Turkish interests, both during and after his tenure in Congress. After leaving Congress, Hastert became a registered lobbyist and joined the law and lobbying firm Dickstein Shapiro as a senior advisor. In this role, he represented various clients, including foreign governments. Notably, Hastert lobbied on behalf of the Republic of Turkey, advocating for its interests in the United States. According to Foreign Agents Registered Act filings, Hastert's firm received substantial compensation for these services. In 2014, for instance, his firm, along with another lobbying firm, shared a $1.4 million annual contract with the Turkish government. As part of his lobbying efforts, Hastert traveled to Turkey with other former lawmakers, with expenses covered by the Turkish government. During time in Congress, Hastert's actions also drew scrutiny regarding potential Turkish influence. In 2000, he initially supported a resolution recognizing the Armenian genocide, a move opposed by Turkey. However, he withdrew the resolution just before a scheduled vote, citing concerns raised by the Clinton administration about potential harm to U.S. interests. This reversal prompted speculation about external pressures influencing his decision. Further allegations emerged from whistleblower testimonies suggesting that Turkish officials discussed making covert payments to Hastert in exchange for political favors. These claims, based on FBI wiretaps, indicated that Turkish entities arranged for campaign contributions to Hastert's fund in small amounts to avoid detection. While these allegations were serious, they were not substantiated through official investigations, and Hastert denied any wrongdoing. The international network that facilitates the covert movement and distribution of nuclear technology and classified information involved a complex array of intermediaries operating behind layers of diplomatic immunity, business fronts, and intelligence cover. These individuals were embedded within embassies, defense institutions, and multinational corporations and operated in tandem with political interests, often bypassing official channels. Their operations were rarely visible to the public, but they formed a quiet infrastructure through which sensitive material could move across continents without detection. In countries with strong defense ties to the United States, several actors played key roles in acting as brokers or logistical coordinators. These included government officials disguised as trade representatives or defense attachés who oversaw secure channels of communications and intelligence flow. They often operated out of embassies or consular offices, giving them protection from surveillance and prosecution. These individuals managed contacts within military procurement offices, allowing them to discreetly place orders or arrange transfers of dual-use technology that could serve both civilian and military nuclear development. Multinational corporations specializing in electronics, avionics, surveillance, and metallurgical engineering were another major component in this structure. These companies were often registered in jurisdictions with limited transparency or operating through subsidiaries that allowed for arm's length transactions. Through corporate shell games, and loosely monitored export controls. These businesses enabled the movement of critical hardware and software necessary for nuclear enrichment or weapons deployment. The individuals managing these operations tended to have long-standing ties to military contracting networks and government agencies, which allowed them to evade serious scrutiny. Private consultants and intermediaries also played a vital role. Often former intelligence officers or defense officials, they leveraged personal networks to facilitate introductions, coordinate deliveries, or arrange payments. In many cases, they worked alongside lobbyists or foreign policy advisors with access to high-ranking officials. Their jobs was not just to manage logistics, but also to ensure the oversight bodies either remain unaware of the transfer or were convinced not to interfere. This, inf- this influence was exerted through gifts, campaign donations, and subtle threats involving state security and diplomatic fallout. In Eastern Europe and Central Asia, figures embedded in logistics and customs infrastructures assisted in routing shipments through less monitored corridors. These individuals operated in countries with weaker regulatory environments, ensuring that sensitive material could pass through airports, ports, or border checkpoints with minimum documentation. Some ran freight forwarding operations or were tied to special economic zones, giving them cover to move items that might otherwise be flagged in more secure jurisdictions. The cover stories employed for these operations often involved scientific collaboration, medical research, or infrastructure development. These justifications allowed for the acquisition and shipment of items like high-speed centrifuges, collaboration devices, radioactive isotopes, and shielding materials. Once relocated, these items could be repurposed or reverse engineered to support nuclear ambitions in countries seeking a strategic edge. The movement of information followed similar discrete channels. Intelligence operatives and diplomats relied heavily on secured communication methods, diplomatic pouches, and encrypted storage devices. Meetings were often conducted in neutral countries during international conferences or under the guise of bilateral development talks. Those responsible for moving sensitive documents or data were highly trained in counter-surveillance techniques and frequently operated under alternate identities. Meanwhile, individuals placed within domestic and international regulatory bodies were sometimes persuaded to overlook irregularities or stall investigations. Some of these individuals were compromised by financial incentives, while others were pressured through career threats or ideological alignment. Their cooperation ensured that even when warnings were raised, they rarely reached levels of serious legal consequences. Overall, this network this network functioned not as a single coordinated group, but as a web of loosely connected actors working towards aligned goals. Each participant had a role, whether that was procurement, logistics, security, or diplomatic shielding. This decentralization made the entire operation more difficult to disrupt and allowed participants to deny knowledge of broader implications. The scale of this hidden architecture and its implications for global security remain deeply troubling, particularly as it was sustained by the complicity and silence of those tasked with upholding the laws meant to prevent such proliferation. Several covert operations involving the illicit transfer of nuclear technology, arms trafficking, and diplomatic cover have been exposed over the years. Many of these operations follow the pattern of leveraging international networks, private intermediaries, and front companies to evade detection and facilitate the flow of sensitive material. While some names have already been discussed, there are other distinct cases and operations that can be highlighted for their connection to similar covert global activities. And one such example is the German-Iraqi connection uncovered in the late stages of the Cold War, where German companies were found to have supplied Iraq with materials and expertise used to develop chemical weapons and missile systems. Companies involved had contracts to build facilities that were later determined to be weapons production sites. The German government at the time faced significant political pressure for allowing these transfers to take place, despite international restrictions. These transactions were often disguised as civilian industrial projects, such as water treatment or pharmaceutical facilities, but inspections later revealed otherwise. Another case is the Israeli-South African nuclear collaboration. During the apartheid era, there were reports and investigations suggesting that South Africa and Israel had worked together in nuclear weapons research and possibly testing. The cooperation included the exchange of fissile material or fissile material and scientific expertise. A mysterious double flash detected by an American satellite in the southern Indian Ocean in the late 1970s raised suspicion of a joint Israeli-South African nuclear test, though denied by both nations. Former military officials and analysts later supported the likelihood that such collaboration took place covertly and was deliberately hidden from the international community. In the case of Libya, a large international smuggling ring led by a Pakistani nuclear scientist helped supply the Libyan government with centrifuge designs and components for uranium enrichment. This network operated through a web of companies and intermediaries in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Intelligence agencies from several countries eventually uncovered the ring, which led to Libya voluntarily dismantling its nuclear program. What was significant about this network was its reliance on engineers, shipping agents, and legal companies to handle materials and documentation, shielding the operation from early detection. Another notable case is the so-called Toshiba Kongsberg scandal, in which Japanese and Norwegian companies were discovered to have sold sophisticated milling machines to the Soviet Union. These machines were critical in helping the Soviet Navy reduce the acoustic signature of its submarines, thus improving their stealth capabilities. The sale violated international agreements and restrictions, and the companies involved had concealed the true purpose of the machines by falsifying end-user documents and working through intermediaries. The exposure of the operation led to a political embarrassment and a review of export control policies in allied nations. During the Balkan conflicts in the 1990s, covert arms transfers to various factions were facilitated by a number of state and intelligence operatives who used humanitarian aid and reconstruction contracts as cover for moving weapons and sensitive equipment. In many cases, these transfers were done in violation of United Nations embargoes. Former intelligence operatives later testified that these actions were sanctioned by certain Western governments under the rationale of achieving geopolitical balance or securing future strategic alliances. The weapons often ended up in the hands of warlords or were used in ethnic cleansing campaigns. There is also the case of Operation Merlin, an operation in which a flawed nuclear blueprint was deliberately provided to Iran through a defect Russian scientist, or defected Russian scientist. The idea was to sabotage Iran's efforts by providing incorrect information that would derail their program. However, the operation reportedly backfired because Iranian engineers were able to identify and correct the flaws, potentially accelerating their process instead of hindering it. This operation revealed the dangers of using disinformation in highly technical scientific fields and raised questions about the wisdom and control of such covert initiatives. Another example involves the covert support given to opposition forces in Angola during the Cold War, where arms and supplies were routed through South Africa and Zaire using private logistics firms with intelligence ties. These supplies were often labeled as non-lethal goods, but were found to include ammunition, mortars, and rocket-propelled grenades. Private contractors, some of whom later appeared in unrelated intelligence scandals, were hired to oversee these transfers, operating with little oversight and wide latitude to bypass regulatory frameworks. Lastly, there were secret collaborations during the 1980s involving Taiwan and several Western nations, where equipment and nuclear-related materials were transferred covertly to advance Taiwan's now defunct nuclear weapons ambitions. Though Taiwan ultimately abandoned its program, documents and testimonies emerged suggesting that nuclear fuel cycle components and reactor designs were passed through intermediaries in South Korea and other nations, using medical and scientific partnerships as a front. There have been there have there have been long-standing concerns and substantial evidence suggesting that mainstream media channels in the United States are either comprised or systematically reluctant to investigate and expose deeper structural issues within the government and intelligence operations. These concerns are not limited to isolated incidents but stem from patterns of behavior that include media self censorship, editorial bias, corporate ownership conflicts, and close relationships between media figures and government officials. One major issue is the revolving door between media and government. Prominent journalists have often taken positions in government and vice versa, creating an environment where critical reporting of national security and intelligence matters becomes complicated by personal relationships and institutional interests. This dynamic can discourage aggressive reporting on sensitive topics like surveillance, covert operations, or foreign policy misconduct. Media outlets that rely on access to government insiders may be hesitant to publish material that could jeopardize those relationships. Another factor is corporate ownership and influence. Major news outlets are owned by large conglomerates with diverse business interests that often intersect with political power structures. These corporate interests can shape editorial direction, suppress certain stories, or influence how news is framed. Issues that might be detrimental to corporate or political allies may receive minimal coverage or be presented in a diluted form. This dynamic affects coverage of military interventions, arms deals, intelligence abuse, and international lobbying efforts. Declassified documents and whistleblower revelations have shown that intelligence agents have directly influenced media coverage. In the past, there were admitted operations such as the Central Intelligence Agency's effort to cultivate journalists during the Cold War for favorable reporting, which became widely associated with the concept known as Operation Mockingbird. Although some argue that this specific operation formally ended, the precedent it set raised ongoing concerns about the extent to which intelligence agencies could shape public narrative through media intermediaries. Whistleblowers who attempt to expose government wrongdoing often encounter strong resistance, not only from their agencies, but also from media institutions. Some outlets have refused to publish stories due to pressure from government officials, fear of legal consequences, or international editorial decisions based on political alignment. In cases involving surveillance, torture programs, covert wars, or illegal arms transfers, whistleblowers have sometimes turned to independent or foreign media to have their stories told after being dismissed or ignored by domestic outlets. Another dimension is the use of national security laws and state secrecy claims to prevent reporting. Journalists have been threatened with prosecution under espionage laws for working with sources inside the intelligence community. This legal pressure contributes to a climate of fear and self-censorship, discouraging journalists and media companies from pursuing stories that may challenge the official narrative or uncover structural corruption. There are also documented cases where investigative reporters were removed from their positions, demoted, or saw their stories shelved for pursuing subjects deemed too controversial. Topics like government involvement in narcotics trafficking, unauthorized surveillance programs, or foreign influence in policymaking have repeatedly been marginalized in mainstream reporting, even when credible evidence was available. Instead, these stories have often been picked up by smaller independent outlets or surfaced years later through books or documentaries. Several notable examples illustrate how mainstream media channels in the United States have either failed to investigate or actively suppressed stories involving deep government or intelligence operations. These examples highlight how influence, pressure, and complicity can result in important matters being underreported, delayed, or sanitized. One example involves the early coverage of the National Security Agent's domestic surveillance programs, years before the major revelations, a former technician working with telecommunications infrastructure attempted to alert major media outlets about unauthorized surveillance of American citizens. His disclosure was either dismissed or sat on for long periods. It was only years later, after a high-profile whistleblower's documents provided irrefutable evidence, that the full scale of the surveillance became widely reported. Prior to that, media outlets had been approached with information but declined to publish out of legal fears or because government officials requested silence. Another case involved covert support for armed groups abroad, particularly during the Cold War and post-Cold War eras. In Central America, investigative journalists who uncovered American support for paramilitary groups involved in drug trafficking and atrocities faced international backlash or institutional backlash. One journalist who published a major expose linked American back operations to the crack cocaine epidemic was heavily discredited in the process after intense pressure. His newspaper distanced itself from the story, and despite later investigations that corroborated much of what he reported, the damage to his credibility was already done. During the lead-up to military intervention in the early 2000s, major media organizations widely repeated official claims about foreign weapons programs without verifying the evidence. Journalists and intelligence analysts who questioned these narratives internally or externally were sidelined. Later, many of those claims were proven false, but by then, public opinion had already been shaped by the uncritical reporting. Some reporters later admitted that they had been hesitant to challenge official sources for fear of losing access or appearing unpatriotic. There was also a case where a major broadcaster decided not to air a comprehensive investigative segment exposing the connection between a major political figure and offshore financial interests. Despite the story being well documented and involving public records, it was pulled just before broadcast. Internal memos suggest the network feared the legal ramifications and the potential loss of advertising revenue from related businesses. Another example involves stories related to the interrogation and torture program operated by intelligence agencies. Certain media outlets had access to details of secret detention facilities and enhanced interrogation methods years before they were officially acknowledged. However, those stories were delayed or diluted after consultations with government officials. Editors agreed to suppress publications based on requests from high-level officials, citing national security, even when journalists had compelling evidence and first-hand accounts. There have also been cases where journalists were demoted or reassigned after pursuing investigative leads into government contracts, defense procurement, or arms trafficking involving foreign intermediaries. In one instance, a reporter looking into covert transport networks and shell companies tied to defense logistics was removed from their position after internal disputes over the direction of the coverage. Though no official reason was given, colleagues reported that pressure from external agencies may have influenced the decision. Independent media and foreign broadcasters were sometimes picked up where domestic outlets hesitated. There have been major stories involving diplomatic corruption, surveillance partnerships, and offshore networks tied to intelligence figures that were initially ignored in the United States but gained traction internationally. Once the public response reached a certain threshold, larger outlets would then follow up, often framing the issue in softer or less accusatory terms. Softer or less accusatory terms. And that is the end of my reading. This is something that I've been really wanting to get into for quite a long time, especially the part where it comes down to um, journalism. Now, I want to talk about that a lot more later on as we go in. Whenever I started this year, I was discussing JFK's assassination. After that, I went into kind of glossing over the conversation about Operation Mockingbird, and this is where we start looking at Operation Mockingbird. After that, I'm also wanting to go into Jade Helm because that's another topic that nobody seems to talk about today. It seems odd to me that a lot of this information has just kind of like vanished from people's conversation within the last 5, 6 years. I remember whenever I started getting into this, doing the research, you heard about things like Jade Helm and Operation Mockingbird, and and all of these conspiracies. But these days, man, it's like nobody even knows what you're talking about, So um, that's what I'm going to start doing. I'm going to start pulling up the stuff and bringing it back out, and hopefully I can get people who are willing to actually start talking about it again, because it's really a shame. Um, it seems to me like things have really gone way into hyperdrive. I mean, it's like everything has to be uh, tied to, you know, remote viewing or some shit like that, when there's actually conspiracies that are taking place that deal with nuclear proliferation, and congressmen freaking selling their souls for a freaking little bit of cash. So this is stuff that I do want to get into. I'm also wanting to, hopefully, I can go back over some of the banking stuff as well, because I want to talk about the Federal Reserve and get that straightened out. Start having a conversation about that too, because there's whole a whole topic on that alone just by itself. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the show. I'm wanting to try to keep this going, but to be honest with you, I'm having some really schedule problems getting things that I need done. So I'm having issues at getting topics out, getting uploads done according to time. I've got a whole bunch of stuff to do. Like today, I'm actually editing a doing editing. I finished, or I didn't finish. I stopped doing my editing just maybe 15 minutes before I knew it was time to do my stream. So I stopped doing that, and then after I do that, I'm going to do some more editing and maybe end up on another show that's supposed to be streaming tonight with Naroki if he shows up. But I'm going to try to if I don't fall asleep first. Now, before we get going, I want to say thank you for Dragus Production for stopping by on D Live. Much appreciation. I believe that was today. They don't really ever say anything when it comes to dates and stuff. So um, that is what I've been noticing. So now I am doing a distribution of rewards on D Live. I the treasure chest. I'm opening it up, so hopefully, if anybody's out there and they want to be on there, they can get some of this reward. They just have to be on the channel. I don't know for sure if Dragus is on there still or not, but I will do it. Nobody was there. It just sucks, man. Well, I did do the chest. Sorry about that for not, not nobody getting any of that. I appreciate you stopping by though, Dragus, and hopefully you enjoyed the show. Hopefully all of you enjoyed the show. Just to let everybody know, we are streaming on Rumble, X, D Live, Twitch, YouTube, and Kick. On Kick and D Live, I believe, I go by Roger_Hanson, and on Twitch, I go by Infamous 1969. So you can catch me there. Now, I don't have any of my episodes. I don't have any recorded episodes after each stream on Twitch. So in order to watch my stream on there, you have to actually be there. And then after it's done, it just kind of goes away. So just be aware of that. Now, on YouTube, I have two channels. I have The Wonderful World of Weirdness, at The Wonderful World of Weirdness, and then I have Strange Stories. which this is a part of Strange Stories as well. So you can catch me on there as well. Now on X, I go by Roger Hanson at ROGLOL1973. If you guys want to stop in and say hello, give me some support on there. Feel free to stop by and say hello. I always do shout outs when I have time to. So um, I appreciate you if you do ahead of time. And on Rumble, I am Roger Hanson at Infamous OG1973. You can find my channel, The Wonderful World of Weirdness, on Rumble.com. So I have Wonderful World of Weirdness on Rumble and YouTube. The rest of them are just personal accounts that I live stream on, just so you guys know. So with that, I guess I am done. I was able to get 55, 56 minutes into the live stream, and I'm ready to end this. It's time for me to go to bed, man. Get some sleep. It's not even nighttime yet here, and I'm still tired. So if you like the show, please like, subscribe, share, make comments. We love comments. Just go down into the comment section just below this and make a comment, and I will respond to you. Um, that doesn't matter what platform you're on, I will respond to you. So feel free to comment, give feedback, things of that nature. I just say hi. You know what I'm saying? I mean, have a conversation with me. I'm sick of nobody wanting to talk on the internet. To be honest with you, that's the reason why I do this. I don't do it to just you know do it. I do it because I enjoy having conversations with people. So um, with that being said, I like I said, make a comment, and I hope you guys have a good day. Uh, whatever time of the day it is, I hope you have a good one. And with that, I am going to end the episode. Thanks for watching, guys.